Let us pay homage to all these people. Thank you very much for paying homage to our martyrs who sacrificed their valuable life for the right to self-determination. Now I welcome the keynote speaker, Mr. Livingston, United Nations independent expert on the promotion of the democratic and the equitable international order. I think he's very close to us and he has been addressing so many meetings, and the person who really understands the meaning of right to self-determination. Therefore, he has been trying to understand how we can go about, how we can switch on this particular issue. So therefore, we are very happy to have him with us, and therefore we warmly welcome him for this particular session. The next is today's speakers. And first of all, we welcome Mr. Mustafa Abdul Bari and Reverend Father Dr. Jerry Jambam and Dr. Paul Newman and Dr. Baban Eliassi and Jesuit Ferris. So all these eminent speakers, they really understand the right to self-determination from their experience in their own countries and in other countries also. So therefore, they have been out of experience, they have vast knowledge regarding this particular right to self-determination. So these are the people who really right to speak this particular issue. And we have been talking and we have been doing and we have been spreading this particular right to self-determination. It is a beautiful occasion where we can come together and share our ideas so that we can launch in action with our understanding, with our knowledge. I think this is a right time that we can come together. So therefore, these eminent speakers really marvelous out of their experience and then intellectual caliber. They will be able to guide us back. And the next, I welcome all the participants who are really almost 28 people are here. So all the participants with their valuable time, they sacrifice for the sake of this particular right to self-determination and understand and go about with actions. So therefore, I warmly welcome all the participants who really sacrifice their time for this particular session. So we begin with this particular session. I think the opening batsman will be Dr. Father Jerry Jambam. I think he's a man really who did his studies on this particular right to self-determination. And he has been working for this particular cause. I think really it's a marvelous job that he has been doing that. So he is a citizen of Southern Cameroon, and he is a Catholic priest and a professor of moral theology in Rome. He holds PhD in sacred theology from the Latin Pontifical University, Rome. His contribution to this literature of the Southern Cameroon struggle for independence is incomparable. He has played a remarkable role in the area of diplomacy and the written word to the liberation struggle of his native land, Ambazonia. And Father Gerald is an African theologian, and because of his courage and independence of mind and inventive imagination, he has created a liberation theology for his continent, which he calls theology of right to self-determination. He makes his theology evident in the following works he has recently authored: Independence or Nothing, 2018, The Next Africa, 2020. So beautiful writings and reflections, and he's a right person to speak up a right to self-determination. I warmly your speech now. Welcome. You can unmute your mic. Yeah.
Okay. Father Kulandai, thank you for the introduction. The opportunity which has been offered me to address an audience with the presence of the UN independent expert on the promotion of a democratic and equitable international order, Mr. Livingston Siwanyana, will not be misused if at the outset I venture to express a hope that its bearings on the great question of the British Southern Cameroon's independence may secure for it an extensive circulation, as well as the sympathetic study of all who are interested in the condition of the suffering, the dispossessed, the oppressed, and the colonized peoples in the world. The morality of recapturing our great Southern Cameroonian past, of retrieving our lost dignity as a people, the attempt at salvaging what can still be salvaged from a great disconcerting yesterday is a moral obligation. In page 8 of my book, Independence or Nothing, I raised a very pertinent issue, which is one of the root causes of the present genocide taking place in the British Southern Cameroons. And before I go to that particular point, I want to say that my work is entitled, What Goes Around Comes Around, the Unfinished Responsibility of the UNO in the British Southern Cameroons. I was then talking about my book, Independence or Nothing, the page 8 of it, which I raised a very pertinent issue, which is one of the root causes of the present genocide taking place in the British Southern Cameroons. I was then talking about the defining 1961 UNO plebiscite in the Southern Cameroons, that the options of the plebiscite did not take a democratic process before they reached our people, that they were an imposition from above without the most relevant option, and that the struggle for the independence of the Southern Cameroons today is a definitive answer to those errors of the past. But let me tell this story well by illustrating it with a story, a familiar story. There is a biblical story of the Old Testament Joseph, who rose to become a prime minister in foreign land, Egypt. Joseph becomes the second most powerful person in that country. The brothers of Joseph, who had sold him out like a slave to foreigners, do not know that they will discover the truth. Through this discovery, God will awaken their guilty conscience to what they had done 20 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, Martin Luther King Jr. once affirmed that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. The United Nations is the greatest institution of nations in the world. It is therefore a moral institution, and every moral institution has a conscience. Conscience is the moral barometer of the heart that senses when we have done good and when we have done wrong. The UNO, like a great moral community that possesses a conscience, has done wonderful things, noble, good, and beautiful things in the world. It has also allowed and sometimes cooperated with some strange phenomena and people at some times. One of such areas since its inception in 1945 is the British Southern Cameroons, my native land. The UNO British Cameroons plebiscite of 1961 carried with it core absurdities and that have affected our people till today. What our people sought to achieve, the plebiscite question belittled it. Get into the archives of the UN and discover this for yourself. The travesty, or rather the comedy played in the plebiscite question. The UN plebiscite question read, do you wish to achieve independence by joining the Independent Federation of Nigeria? Or do you wish to achieve independence by joining the Independent Republic of Cameroon? In simple day-to-day parlance, this is a tautology, because you do not wish to achieve independence by joining another country. That is, in the Oxford Dictionary, independence means free from outside control, not subject to another's authority. Oxford is the intellectual seat of a British scholarship. And Britain hands over the British Southern Cameroons to France and La République du Cameroun and calls it independence. What absurdity. You become independent by being on your own and by taking your own destiny into your own hands. Our problem is not, as some of our detractors spread around, a linguistic problem. We have more than 100 beautiful languages of entire and dignified kingdoms in Ambazonia for an English colonial language to be our problem. Our problem is the scheming manipulation of our forefathers to accept a skeletal independence without flesh, without substance, without anything. It is therefore a problem of stratagem, a scheme that was used in the UN plebiscite of 11th February 1961 to deceive and outwit the innocent and powerless Southern Cameroonian and hand over his land to predators. We know that in the business of self-determination, all, and I mean all, depends on the freedom fighter. But the Secretariat of the UNO has the strongest platform to rouse the conscience of the world on our behalf because they are part of the problem. Believe it or not, the present genocide that is going on in the British Southern Cameroons, the root cause of this Holocaust, as I assert in my book, Independence or Nothing, is the blatant refusal to grant independence to a territory which was supposed to have its independence as other African and Asian countries were granted independence in the 1950s and 1960s. If Tanganyika, a former German territory and mandated territory of the League of Nations under British rule, was given its independence by Britain in 1961, what must have happened to Britain from equally granting independence to the British Cameroons, which was also a former German territory and the mandated territory of the League of Nations under British rule? If the British Cameroons were not supposed to be independent, why then did France and the UNO go ahead to grant independence to the trust territory of French Cameroon on 1st January 1960 without consulting British Cameroonians? The British Cameroons was therefore not part of French Cameroon independence and was supposed to rightfully as well have its own independence. In fact, how come it that Namibia, which the world powers qualified as Mandate C territory, that is, a territory with remote chances of becoming independent, should come from behind and become independent, while the British Cameroons, that was called a Mandate B territory in 1919, by the world powers, should still today be clamoring and begging cap in hands for its rightful independence? Time and again, the UNO is spoken of as the family of nations. The UN headquarters could as well be described as a home, a place of welcome and concern for the good family members everywhere. The ideals that inform this organization need animate their modus operandi everywhere they operate. I spoke last time about the brilliant ideas and values of the fathers of the UNO, Roosevelt and Churchill. Dear Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, I take this opportunity by talking about the UNO and Great Britain, but I am not exonerating us from our share of the blame and from the freedom fighting responsibility which we must assume. Independence is not handed like the head of John the Baptist on a platter of gold. If it is independence, it is to be fought for. There are experts when it concerns physical fighting. I am not. I am a fervent believer in the intellect, the intellectual, the psychological, and the moral and spiritual combat. Most of what is left to be done can be tackled by the ingenious use of our wits, our pens, our social media, and all civilized means for freedom fighting. Our forefathers used to say that a man who does not lick his lips, can he blame the harmattan from drying them? The responsibility is still ours. Thank you.
Thank you for Gerald. Beautifully you analyzed the existing situation in your own country, and you very well declared that UNO a moral institution having a conscience. So therefore, it is what you call, you really very well explain the significance of independence. Being independent is being of our own, no external force that controls us. And explain the genocide in southern Cameroon. And that's a very beautifully you are very touched with the realities in your country. And you said we fight for independence. That's a really a good thing that you are made. So thank you very much. Thank you for enlightening us. So next speaker would be Dr. Paul Newman. He is an professor as well as a principal of the evening college, St. Joseph College in Bangalore, as well as he is also professor in Karnataka University also. And he is not only intellectual in a caliber or intellectual scholar, as well as he is a practical man who really touches with the realities, and he works for the well-being of the affected and marginalized people. And he is there whenever something's happened, even in and around Bangalore or in India. Man is there. His role is very significant, and he's very good in articulating the cries of the poor, the cries of the victims. That's his uniqueness. I really admire him, the service that he does in the institutions as well as in the people who really struggle in their in their areas. So therefore, welcome Dr. Paul Newman to address your views to us. Thank you.
Vanakkam, Father. Vanakkam to everybody. Thanks for the very elaborate introduction. Father has been always very kind to me for the last 25 years since we have known each other. We have worked together for the Sri Lankan Tamil refugees, both in the camps in Tamil Nadu as well as in Elam also. So here I see that there are no speakers on the Elam struggle. So initially I was just toying with the idea of speaking on right to self-determination in a general context, but then as there's nobody to represent the Elam Tamils, I feel that I should speak up, and then Father Gerard has opened up a can of worms in the form of pointing out how the colonial masters have completely handed over power to the powerful groups in the respective countries, and manufactured minorities as well as completely tried to decimate the minority groups. So in that sense here, we have seen very legitimate claims by very powerful people who were totally independent before the colonial times. But because of colonialism, many nations were put together, stitched together artificially. And then when colonialism ended, we are back with a new problem. The masters have changed. It was the white colonial masters who were there from the West. Now it is the powerful, the moneyed masters from our own southern hemispheres. So in that sense, first when we speak of the UN structures itself, the UN speaks of right to self-determination. Article 1 of the Charter of the UN itself, where articulates what right to self-determination is. And then the ICCPR Article 1 and 12 also articulate the concept of right to self-determination. And then Article 1 of International ICESCR again articulates. Then we have the Convention on the elimination of all forms of racial discrimination, because here when we speak of right to self-determination is suppressed for the minorities, and it is nothing but a racial hatred. For example, in Sri Lanka, it is the racial hatred of the Sinhalese towards the Tamils that has seen the problem escalating and leading to a genocide. So in that way, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination has to be enforced in places where the right to self-determination of people is forcibly taken away, be it Amazonia, or be it Kurdistan, or Catalonia, or be it Tamil Eelam in Sri Lanka. So in all these places. So that is where here the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination gave a general recommendation, number 21, on the right to self-determination. And then Article 29 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child speaks of the nationality to the child. So in that way, there are very many resolutions that have been passed in the General Assembly. There have been a declaration on the granting of independence to colonial countries and peoples, as well as we have had the declaration on the rights of persons belonging to national, ethnic, religious, or linguistic minorities. So it is here that we speak of national or ethnic minorities, religious and linguistic minorities, and Tamils come as a linguistic minority in Elam. So when we speak of the Declaration on the Rights of the Persons, so in that way we find that the claims of the Tamils right from the year 1948, since independence, has been completely subverted by the majoritarian Sinhalese, for the simple reason that the Sinhalese constitute 70% of the population of Sri Lanka. But when we speak of the Tamil areas of north and east of Sri Lanka, it is the original homeland of the Tamils, and it is a 10% Tamil dominated area. You can see how the demography of the place has been changed over the last 100 years, wherein there has been a population resettlement programs undertaken by the government of Sri Lanka, which is a very serious issue, because if you take the population of Trincomalee in 1881 census, you can see that 66% of the inhabitants of Trincomalee district in the east of northeastern parts of Sri Lanka, they were Tamils, and Muslims constituted around 33%. Muslims in Sri Lanka also speak Tamil. So virtually more than 90% of more than 96% of people in Trincomalee were Tamil speaking people. So the population of the Sinhalese was just a meager 2%. But today, if you see, the Sinhalese are around 33%. Tamils are also around 33%. And Muslims are also around 33%. So they have brought in this demographic changes. So when we speak of the minority issues and democracy, especially, it's very important to make a study on the demographic patterns, how it changes, especially in areas where the people have been fighting for right to self-determination. It is the same in India also. If you look at Kashmir, Article 370, which guaranteed the rights of the Kashmir, has been taken away. And when such protective rights are taken away, anybody can enter into the place, buy land, and then population shifting can happen. So this is what has happened in Tamil Eelam. Also, if you look at the present happenings in Tamil Eelam, the northern east, you can see a number of Buddhist monuments coming up. And the only Buddhist there you can find is the army men, because Sri Lanka, the Tamil areas of Sri Lanka are the most militarized areas of one of the most militarized areas of the world, in a non-combat zone, because war stopped there in the year 2009. So virtually when there is no war, it is a non-combat zone. So when we speak of a non-combat zone, having having one military man for every three people, civilians, is something alarming. Even in combat areas, you don't find that many soldiers with the ratio of the population to the civilians. So the ratio of the soldiers to the civilians is one of the highest in the world. 1:3, especially in the Wani regions of the north. So it is here that we, as Tamils, should continue to fight for the right to self-determination, though the war is over, uh, because the Tamils are victims of a genocide, a ruthless genocide that happened right from 1948, but peaked during the last course of the war in the year 2009, wherein even to this day, 146,679 people are unaccounted. Sri Lanka has the world's second largest cases of disappearances of people. That is the Tamils who fought in the fought or who were somewhere or the other connected with the war. Not a single Tamil family can be disconnected from the war for the simple reason that every Tamil family was part of the struggle for right to self-determination there, because they lived as independent people till the year 1834, when forcibly the British occupied the Tamil areas and then brought the Tamil areas under their control, under a unified capital city, one single capital city, that is Colombo. So the country, which was divided into three parts, became one. And when they left, they passed on the power and administration into the hands of the Sinhalese and left. So it is here that though the people have been fighting for their right to self-determination over the past 74 years now, nothing really has happened. The UN has not recognized the right to self-determination of the Tamil people, like the way they have not done with the others also. So it is here, it's a very unique case, and then we know for sure that there is no special rapporteur for the right to self, the UN special rapporteur for right to self-determination. There's only an independent advisor. So as Mr. Livingston is there, I strongly urge that the UN systems and countries where we people move, especially countries like South Africa and others, they should take up this cause of right to self-determination in future and see to it that a special rapporteur is appointed to champion the cause of the right to self-determination, so that these people who are struggling, because today we are all sympathizing with the Ukraine, but at the same time, we find that people have been suffering in the other parts of the world for more than 70 years since the Second World War. No, and then the case of countries like Catalonia, which were once upon a time independent, now part of Spain, is a 300-year-old story. I was there as an independent observer when the court case was going on at Madrid. So, and it was a very peacefully conducted referendum. 96% of people vote for an independent country, but ultimately, the Supreme Court of Spain nullifies everything and puts everybody behind bars for a period of 25 years, 23 years, 13 years. So, without any rationality. So, in the same way, in Tamil Eelam also, on the during the last stages of the war, thousands and thousands of young women and men were taken into custody, never to return. As per the government records itself, around 12,000 youngsters, nobody knows where they disappeared. Their parents are anxiously waiting. Their brothers and their siblings are waiting. Their spouses are waiting whether they would return or not. So far, there is no news about these people. So it is here that these struggles shouldn't go in vain. The UN should help them, and that is where a special rapporteur becomes extremely important in order to recommend these cases and document these cases, as well as project these struggles, verify these struggles, because these are all very, very authentic struggles, and it is very important that these struggles are all documented. And unless you have a special rapporteur for right to self-determination, the task becomes laborious, because the people who are here attending this webinar and people who are fighting for the cause of self-determination are people who are really, in one sense, they are directionless people for the simple reason that the only ray of hope for them is the UN. So, as the UN over the last 70 years has not really pitched in for right to self-determination, it becomes extremely important that whether it is Tamil Eelam or Kurdistan or any other Baluchistan or any other place in the world where people have a legitimate right to self-determination should get their right. It becomes extremely important, and this is where people like Mr. Livingston should make a difference in terms of very strongly recommending the case of these countries for self-determination, because only when you have right to self-determination, democracy can flourish, because you can't have democracy in a neo-colonial world. So the Tamils can never think of democracy in the midst of one soldier for every 3 civilian in the northeastern parts of Tamil Eelam. So it is here that we urge Dr. Livingston and others to really, yes, Father, speak up for the right to self-determination, as well as appointment of a special rapporteur for self-determination. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for explaining the eclipsed activities of colonization, and you referred the acts and the resolutions of UNO for right to self-determination, and you have really explained the present situation in Sri Lanka, and you have given demanded that's a special rapporteur for right to self-determination in UNO. That's a very good demand. I think this is Livingston would take into the consideration, and then at least you propose in the UNO meet. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for beautifully articulating the Sri Lankan issues. Next speaker, I would call upon Dr. Baban Eliasi. So you can speak. Activity School and Vice President Centre Sagros pour le droit de l'homme. So please, you are most welcome to speak about the real situations in your
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, cher modérateur. Hello, everybody. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about the situation of Kurds and other minorities in Iran. I would like also to thank Mr. Livingstone, as well as other participants, and thanks for the organizer of this event. I will talk about the situation of minorities in Iran, in particular those of the Kurds. The Kurds and other national and religious minorities in Iran undergo discrimination. The rights that apply to persons recognized as belonging to minorities include those stated in Article 27 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which Iran is signatory since 1975. So there is a legal obligation to ensure the enjoyment of this right by persons belonging to such minorities. Iranian constitution formally provides for the fair treatment of its minorities. Article 15 permits the use of local and ethnic languages and teaching of ethnic literature in schools, while establishing Persian as the official language. Article 19 states all people of Iran, whatever the ethnic group or tribe to which they belong, enjoy equal rights and color, race, language, and the like, do not bestow any privilege. And the Article 14 provides for equality of all before the law. Despite these nice articles in the Iranian constitution and the international Article 27, which Iran is signatory, the cultural, economic, and political discrimination against the ethnic and religious minority in Iran continues. Till today, the Kurds are deprived of their basic rights. Iran is accusing the Kurds to be secessionists, for just justifying its repression. However, the main Kurdish political parties in Iranian Kurdistan seeking an internal self-determination in form of federal system. Regarding the cultural discrimination, the Kurds, Azeri, Ahwazi, Baluch, Turkmen, and Gilaki ethnics still face difficulties in exercising their rights to their own language in private and in public. All state schooling in these regions is conducted exclusively in Persian. They don't receive proper education facilities and are not occupied with knowledge to enter in the Iranian universities. A concern also expressed by the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination over lack of sufficient measures to enable persons belonging to minorities to have adequate opportunities to learn their mother tongue and to have it used as a medium of instruction. Regarding the economic discrimination, according to different reliable sources, Kurdish resources or Kurdish sources, over 60% of Kurdish people in Iranian Kurdistan live in poverty. Because of underdevelopment of the Kurdish region, due to the elaborated policies by Iranian central government, many Kurds are resorting to kolbari, which is a kind of trade which is not tolerated by the Iranian authorities and their security apparatus in the Kurdish region. Each year, hundreds of kolbars are killed and injured by the government forces along the borders of Kurdish region in Iran. These people often live in the border area between Iranian and Iraqi Kurdistan, and these regions live below the poverty line, and kolbari is their main source to earn a living. Regarding the religious discrimination, Article 115 excludes non-Shia from holding the office of the presidency of the Republic. Article 12 of the Constitution states the official religion of Iran is Islam and the 12 Ja'fari school of thought, and this principle shall remain eternally immutable. This explicit endorsement of a school of Shia Islam alienates the Kurds, Turkmen, Baluch, and Ahwas who practice Sunni Islam. Tehran has a population of at least 1 million Sunni Muslims, but planning permission for a Sunni mosque has to be granted. Since the declaration of fatwa by Ayatollah Khomeini against the Kurdish people in Iran in 1979, more than 10,000 Kurds, including civilians and Peshmerga fighters, have lost their lives, and this violence continues till today. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you, Dr. Baban Eliassi, beautifully articulated the equal rights or the equality that we need in our country, and particularly Kurdistan situation, the present situation, particularly discriminatory situations. And the present situation is like a poverty that you are very well articulated. And then you right to support that right to self-determination is essentially inevitable for any country or any citizens in this world. I think you are rightly point out That's really, Dr. Livingston will take it into consideration and then he will present it in the UN word. Thank you very much. Thank you for presenting us. Thank you. Now I call upon next speaker, that is Luis Perez, that is an academic and a director of Fundació Era, Catalonia. I think most welcome you all. You can present your views now. Please come.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to this event. And I would like to thank you as well, Dr. Newman, for mentioning the case of Catalonia during his very interesting presentation. Since I've got just a few minutes to explain a little bit the case of Catalonia, let me tell you in the first place what Catalonia is not. We are not a colony, at least not a colony in legal terms, nor we are an ethnic minority. Instead, while we are a stateless nation, we are also a civic nation. That means that every person who lives and works in Catalonia is a Catalan, regardless of his or her origin, language, or religion. Of course, our civic nation, like any nation, is built upon an evolving, let's say, public culture in which Catalan language is a core element. But anybody who values this secular public culture is welcome to join the mixed, diverse salad bowl, so to speak, that our nation has become. The problem is that besides being a civic nation, we are also a permanent minority within a state that regards us as such permanent minority. We defend our right of self-determination, neither as a colony, nor as an ethnic minority, nor as victims of an ongoing genocide or anything like that. Luckily, we are not in a context of massive human rights violations like most of the other cases that are being presented today. We defend our self-determination as a civic, democratic, stateless nation like, let's say, Quebec or Scotland, and in the geopolitical context of Western Europe, which is a different geopolitical context from, let's say, Northern Africa or Central Asia or other contexts quite different from the context of Western Europe. After 40 years of military nationalistic dictatorship, Spain, which is our host state, the state to which we belong, Spain transitioned towards democracy. And during this transition, a certain level of self-government was conceded to Catalonia after decades of a hard struggle in our nation, which happened to be one of the territories of Spain in which the opposition to the dictatorship was stronger. However, from the very beginning, this self-government was a source of constant conflict and controversy with the central government. The Spanish government regarded with deep suspicion most of the initiatives that we took in order to improve our economy, to strengthen our society, or to promote our language after centuries of persecution and discrimination. At the beginning of the century, we tried to solve these problems by reforming our autonomous constitution. But even after reaching an agreement with the central government, in which our initial project of reform was curtailed, actually, but even after reaching this agreement, and even after having it voted in a referendum, this new autonomous constitution was nevertheless curtailed by a constitutional court which was dominated by right-wing, nationalistic, and politicized members. After that, many people in Catalonia asked for self-determination. We sought a legal path to decide our future in a peaceful and democratic manner in order to negotiate with Spain a reasonable way to implement such decision, whatever it happened to be. The problem is that we are not in front of Canada or in front of the United Kingdom, but in front of a relatively young but quite nationalistic democracy. Admittedly, not a dictatorship, that's not what I'm saying, but a state in which certainly has a hard time in terms of accepting its internal diversity. The constant rejections by the central government triggered a massive movement of civil disobedience in 2017, which ended up with the temporary suppression of our autonomous government, as well as the detention of its cabinet and of different civil leaders, something which has been denounced by several human rights organizations. Since then, our host state, especially certain elements of the state, has been constantly harassing different parties and organizations which peacefully work for Catalan self-determination. This, in the context of a global retreat of democracy, is certainly a threat to our people, and indeed to many other people in Spain. The authoritarian surge in Spain is targeting stateless nations, but also women, sexual and religious minorities, migrants, artists, singers, and increasingly anybody who happens to be perceived as a threat to the status quo. In this sense, the struggles for Catalan self-determination is part of a wider struggle to strengthen democracy and freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lluís Ferres. Beautifully articulated and the brief history of Catalonia. That's a very beautiful thing because for many people it is new to us. And we Tamil people are very grateful to you because the Catalonia Parliament passed a resolution on Sri Lanka. What happened in Sri Lanka is a genocide. Actually, we are very grateful to you that your parliament has made this statement. And the struggle that you undergo within the territory, particularly Spain, and how much you struggle to affirm the right to self-determination and ethnic uniqueness. That's what really is here, the struggle that you undergo. And you are very beautifully articulated how this is constantly rejected and denied this particular right to self-determination. That's a very beautiful thing that you articulated. And I'm so happy that you are part of this particular team. It is our strength for us. I think we are very grateful to you and continue to be part of our program, our struggle, and we will be very grateful to you. Thank you very much for presenting your beautiful team. Next, I pass on to Omaima, a great personality that we have. Please, over to you. You can speak for 5 minutes and explain the present situations in your country.
Yes, welcome. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody in the room, and especially my dearest friends that I see them there, always fighting for the right of the people to have their nation. My name is Omaima Abdeslam. I am working in Geneva, trying to defend the people's Sahrawi right for self-determination. Yes, we are a colony, and we are suffering of the lack of political will from an European country, which is Spain, who has colonized us for more than 100 years, and unfortunately has made a very bad colonization. So what's happening in Western Sahara is not an exception about what's happening in Tamil or Catalonia and others. It's just some countries, especially Western countries, who has always dealt with us as persons who are inferior maybe, or who have no right to decide anything, and they decide in our place which kind of policies and which kind of government we should have. Even sometimes they appropriate from our natural resources and from our culture and from our language, and we just have to be quiet, or if not, we are facing the death. So I am a person non grata in my own country. I cannot go to my country, my family, I cannot have any contact with my family. And I am not an exception of thousands of Sahrawis who are fighting for the right of self-determination. So we are really hopeful that someone in the UN is ready to listen to us, and we are ready to share with you our point of view. Also, if you agree, Mr. Livingston, we have some research and some document that really we want to share with you about the legal status of Western Sahara in the UN. And if you are interested, I am really ready to send you all these documents. Actually, also we miss now someone that can be some kind of the person who avoids conflict. If you want really to avoid conflict, the best way to avoid conflict in the international sphere is by allowing people democratically in every place to express themselves. This can happen in Tamil, this can happen in Catalonia, in Kurd, in Palestine, in Western Sahara, in every part of the world. So if there is a political will to avoid conflict, you can allow people to speak up by both which kind of governance they want. And the other question that I want to tell you here, that my people has give a big price for this right of self-determination. So I'm talking about thousands of people who has been disappeared. I am talking about thousands of people who has been dead in years of war. I am talking about the plunder of millions and billions of natural resources without our consent. I'm talking about 47 years of exile of my people in the Algerian refugee camp. So if there is a price that we have to pay for our right to self-determination, we have already paid it. And the same thing also has happened with the Catalans, and the same thing has happened with the Tamil people, and the same thing has happened with all the nations who are fighting for the Yemenis, for the Kurds, for the Palestinians, for all of them. They have already paid a price. So what we need now is a political will to avoid conflict. And the best way to avoid conflict is allowing people to vote in a referendum of self-determination. Thank you very much, and I'm ready to listen to you and answer some of your questions. Thank you very much for inviting us to this conference.
Thank you, Umaima. So beautifully articulate that's a political will for avoiding the conflict in our countries. That means allow the people to choose their own government, to live with the rights and then dignity. That's what your aim of your speech that is very clearly expresses. And also express the disappearance in your own country and refugees in the camps. As it's a very pathetic situation, an inhuman situation, and the people live and continue to live and sacrifice and pay the price for those things. And it's a really thing. I think it's a Dr. Livingstone will taking into consideration this political will to avoid a conflict in the countries. So thank you very much, Umaima, for a beautiful sharing. Now I pass on to the next speaker, keynote speaker, Dr. Livingstone. He's a man really with all his living life experience that he has got in various countries and particularly with various people. I really welcome Dr. Livingstone to address your views to us. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Moderator. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead.
Doctor, we don't hear you.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I definitely have internet issues. The network is rather bad here in Kampala. Maybe I need also some degree of self-determination because apparently I always have a road deal whenever I'm here and I have to speak on such important issues. Let me say once again how delighted I am to be part of this discussion. I want to thank Tamil Elam, Wimal, and your team for keeping this discussion alive. I know that this evening I'm speaking to friends. I'm not speaking to strangers. And we have agreed in the past that we need to keep this subject alive. And for that, I'm really thankful. I'm thankful for all the discussions, the webinars that we have had and continue to have. And on this particular occasion, when we speak on the sides of the 49th session of the Council. As some of you might be aware, I'll be in Geneva in June. So I hope I could meet with Umaima. Umaima, I would love to meet with you to discuss further the issue of Western Sahara. I have had on a previous occasion the opportunity to meet with representatives of the Tamil. So if there are any of you who will be in Geneva either in June or September, I would be very happy to meet with you. I plan during our June meeting, this is a meeting of all the annual mandate, the special rapporteurs and mandate holders. I intend to table this issue of right self-determination before my colleagues. Today, I'm not discussing the legality, the justification of the right self-determination, because we all know it, we are passionate about it. You have made a very good case already, all the different speakers, so I don't want to reiterate that. Let me simply say what I plan to do and how I intend to carry this process forward. And that has been my running theme. My concern is more about implementation of the UN resolutions. My concern is about rekindling this whole question of the right self-determination within the UN system. And of course, I hope that I'll be able to author a report before my mandate expires on the need and the right self-determination. My good friend, Newman, you have called for a special rapporteur on self-determination. I would like to raise that in some of the discussions I will have with the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. I will try to raise this issue and see whether it can gain some degree of acceptability. I also, as I've said earlier, discuss this matter among my colleagues and hope that we can generate consensus or develop inertia around the issue, because some of the mandate holders have been visiting some of your countries. For example, the special rapporteur on slavery, ending slavery, Mr. Obomakata, visited Sri Lanka recently, and I've read his report. So I want to engage my colleagues on their findings and what they think needs to be done to push this agenda forward. For example, I would like to broaden the discussion beyond Sri Lanka to Catalonia, Western Sahara, Palestine, Yemen, Armenia, South Cameroon, all of these communities. I would like to hear what my colleagues have to say about these places in case they have visited them. What have been their findings? For example, we are making a case for a referendum. Does it apply in all of these territories, or it is limited or should be restricted to some areas? So at the moment, as my brother, Dr. or Professor Newman said, I'm keenly documenting these cases. I'm more interested in knowing the progress that is being made, the issues at hand, and how we can energize ourselves to ensure that the UN system is alive to the necessity to rekindle this discussion on the right self-determination. So my colleagues over there, my friends, I can see Bosco, you are over there. We have discussed these things over and over. This evening, I simply want to say, I am still committed to this idea. I find it noble. I feel it should be prioritized. I think the current conflict between Ukraine and Russia also has a bearing on the question of the right self-determination. Do some states believe fully that, some of the communities have a right to assert themselves, to engage in some sort of self-governance? Do they have a right to secession? All these are issues that need to be brought up. So, Mr. Moderator, I strongly support this view. I am in concert with you, I reiterate my commitment to rekindling this issue. I'm exploring all the possible avenues as I have promised in the past. I am sure sooner or later you'll hear me speak about the matter. And I intend to announce during my next report in September to the council that I plan to author a report on the right self-determination before my mandate expires. That's the assurance I want to give you. I want to push this matter in all the corridors of power. I intend to do so in New York, as I have said before. Last time I couldn't because the presentation was online. I hope this time around I could have physical presence in New York. If I do, I want to assure you I'm not going to be shy about it. Like you, I'm going to be very pronounced on the matter, and I'm going to mobilize my colleagues about the same. And whatever information you generate, the discussions you have had, they enrich my understanding, they enrich my resolve to make this matter a high priority. You don't need to convince me at all. That's one thing for sure. I'm already convinced. I'm only exploring avenues through which I can highlight the matter within my mandate, prioritize it. Already I'm having calls to deal with the question of peace and security regarding Ukraine and Russia. But even then, I think I still have an opportunity to bring up this matter, explore it as from all the different dimensions. So I just want to reassure you that you have an ally. I understand the discussion. I'm committed to the struggle. I appreciate the struggle and the shortcomings, the suffering of these people in these areas. And I will leave no stone unturned to ensure that this matter gains prominence at my earliest opportunity. With that, I want to thank you once again. I hope we can continue to keep the matter alive. Let these discussions continue, broaden the discussions, bring in more and more people. We want to hear more and more people outside the movement itself. We need to hear voices outside, other voices other than you now. I want you to listen more to what other people say. Do they agree? Do they share the same sentiments? Do they feel that the struggle needs to be upscaled? Because I think now we have explored the issue sufficiently within the movement. Now we need to gain currency. I call it gaining currency from other spheres of life. Other people who believe or think otherwise, share experiences. So in the next meetings that we have, my friends, please bring in more people, broaden this discussion beyond the Tamil, beyond our friends with whom we have been engaging. Try to bring in more people, because the broader the discussion, the more people come on board, the higher the chances that it will gain more political leverage. And that is equally important. So once again, congratulations on this. I hope we shall continue to propel this matter further. Due to time difference, I've been speaking to Wimal. Right now it's dark here. I should be leaving the office now, but because of the importance of our webinar, I had to stay on. So please, Mr. Moderator, allow me to leave after here. because certainly it's getting very dark here. Thank you and congratulations once again.
Thank you, Dr. Livingston, beautifully. The assurance you have given to us, that's wonderful. And you make, you appreciated that keeping the right to self-determination alive. That is, you appreciated us. And your business is see to the implementation of resolution passed in ENO and wherever is possible. That's your duty. And then you also accepted the proposal given by Dr. Paul Newman. There's a special rapporteur for right to self-determination. And you also, given an assurance that you will see to that in the June or in September, you are able to give this right to self-determination in a focused way. And you also given proposed a demand that bring new people for this particular meeting. That's right. That's you are right. So that we'll get to know their minds and their views. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for being with us, and you are able to enlighten us, giving the moral support to go further. That's a beautiful thing that you always, I admire you. Whenever I see you, the assurance that you give up. So that's you are man of heart, that you are able to accept, understand the people's struggle and the struggle for the right to self-determination. Thank you, Dr. Livingston. We'll meet again. I allow you, provided if you have time, a few minutes or something like that, so that you can listen to other people, so that those who are not talked, they can give some proposals or some some demands that they can have. You can just listen to them. Okay. Now open to the participants, please. This is not merely a questioning, but from your experience, you give a proposal so that Livingston will take it up, and then for him it is a good that he can also write a report based on your experiences. Over to the participants, please raise your hand and be free, so that because I already know that Dr. Livingston is about to leave. Just want to listen to them because of the request you made. So please, now it's your time. Global Tamil Movement, please, you raised your hand. Please, you can ask. Unmute yourself and then ask your question. Or you can share your experience. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Livingston. Thank you, moderator. So just I want to ask to my colleagues from here, if we can organize, for example, any chance for our colleague from Catalonia, any chance to have a kind of 1 day or 2 days seminary with all different nations, that we can come together in Catalonia and have some kind of dialogue and exchange, because it's very important to organize this kind of events. I mean, we can organize it regularly. That means once per year, some kind of, and if any chance for you to discuss with the Catalonian parliamentarians to organize it inside of the parliament. And I think all the people here, Dr. Reverend John Baum, Omeima from Western Sahara, I think all of us will be there, and it will be very interesting for us to meet together, because before, in the past, there was this kind of initiative, but after year 2000, there is no more this kind of meeting among the nations who are seeking for their right to self-determination. So I think it's an opportunity, and also for Dr. Livingston, once again, if you can ask to our countries from Africa who are member in the fourth committee of the the special committee on decolonization. So then we can have a kind of interactive dialogue with them also. Thank you. Yeah, Luis, you can.
Yes. Let me ask you, because what you're saying is that you have already planned this event in Catalonia, or you were proposing to organize such an event in Catalonia?
I want to propose, because we already
Okay.
talk about with our colleagues and also with some parliamentarians, about 3 years ago with some colleagues from Catalonia also. Unfortunately, because of the COVID, we couldn't do it, but I need to restart that initiative with your support, and if you can help us to make, it's an opportunity also for people from different nations. There will be about, I think minimum about 15 different nations who can be there, and we can have some kind of for each nation, we can have a different table round and discuss, and also we can exchange our the initiative that we can take with the General Assembly in New York.
Yeah, of course, right now I can only speak for myself, but I find it to be a very interesting idea. And what I can do is to speak with other actors here in Catalonia. I mean, with foundations and NGOs and political parties and so on, in order to undertake this event. Of course, I guess we can establish some sort of contact after this event, in order to keep this idea alive, so that I can speak with these actors in order to start planning such an event. Yeah.
Thank you very much. If anybody is there to share or raise a question, otherwise we'll come to an end. Dr. Livingston is about to leave. So if there is no question, our silence is what do you call best answer, that you no more question. Okay, thank you very much. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Livingston for being with us and sharing and giving the assurance, and continue to be part of this. This is what I want to highlight it. As a person is continue to be with us in supporting us and presenting this matter in the right place where it's supposed to be reached. So therefore, thank you very much, Dr. Livingston, for being with us, and you share your ideas. And all the speakers, particularly Father Dr. Gerald Jambam and Dr. Paul Newman and Baban Eliasi and Juvis Ferres and Omaima. They are beautiful sharing their what do you call experience in their own countries and regarding the right to self-determination. So thank you very much for enlightening us with your experience. Really, this is a very marvelous experience that you had. And I also thank all the participants who really spent their valuable time for this particular session, and you listened to our people's sharing. And you also have, now you are more or less, you are convinced to work together and in future and take up new initiatives, so that we are able to fight for obtain the right to self-determination. That's a beautiful idea that we have. And every day we help each other by sharing. That's what we always grow. That's what we need to do that. That's a moral support, giving to each country. That's what we need to do that. And really it's marvelous work, and particularly Catalonia. So really I admire the effort and the struggle they took it up, and then to say that this is something very important. It's a right to self-determination, and they have been experiencing that things. So that's what they are able to understand the other's struggle. So therefore, with all these things, I once again thank all the people who participated in this particular event, and you have made this event very meaningful, very interesting. So thank you very much. Once again, thanks all the speakers and the keynote speaker, Dr. Livingston. Thank you very much for organizing this particular thing, and particularly Tamil movement. And they have been taking a lot of initiative, and the international organizer is Mr. Bosco. He's a man who behind this particular thing. Therefore, I sincerely thank Mr. Bosco for organizing this thing. So once again, I thank everyone. We'll meet again. We'll meet again to continue to work in the future. Thank you very much.